Hello, Sarah. How
Hello.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well. I'm delighted this is happening because this conversation started here in this room with Sia and Unstoppable, and we were unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
We've been out there quite a lot in this space, and I so value that you come out there with me. And to be able to now pick your brains is a sheer delight, especially because actually I do have a personal interest in what you're going to talk about.
Yes.
Let me introduce you quickly, and then I want to hand over the mic. Okay, may I introduce Sarah Johnson, the incredible woman. Sarah is a counsellor and guidance counsellor and careers counsellor and wellbeing teacher at St. Peter's Lutheran College. And her career objective is to make a difference within education communities as a teacher and counsellor, and to work collaboratively in all areas to develop a shared vision for excellence in student learning and pastoral care. The objective continually challenges me to provide an opportunity for every student to develop socially, emotionally, academically, and spiritually. I love that you work holistically and you embody that, may I add.
Oh.
She says, it's an integral part of my ambition that we help young people to positively navigate through the many life-changing decisions and relationships that they encounter in the schooling phase of their lives, to be able to teach them strategies and to help assist them, to be able to teach them strategies, that's what we're going to talk about today, and assist them in this would make even more well-rounded individuals that benefit the community and society. And this really speaks to me, Sarah, because coming from a public health perspective, there's something with the life course theory. And if we can interject and positively influence at these critical life windows, then it can have a major bearing on someone's trajectory. Yeah. Okay, great. So today we're going to talk about adolescent motivation. And I'm also going to pick your brains about some juicy topics, just being a woman who is very much alive and engaged. So my first question is, what is the greatest challenge to adolescents these days?
We were talking about that pre-live stream. So basically, we've done a lot around the digital space at the moment with regard to wellbeing, and knowing now that with the information and research that we have, that it's one of the major issues of distraction in young people. What that looks like is that they do not have self-awareness or regulation. They are struggling with internal motivation. They are struggling with procrastination, which therefore means they're struggling with success academically and emotionally. And what that really has shown us over the last couple of years, especially in Queensland, where we have had a whole new curriculum throughout a pandemic, is that they're very ill-equipped to manage adversity. So they're just not resilient in the way that maybe we were 10, 15, 20 years ago as teenagers. And some of that really does come down to the fact that they're not sleeping enough, probably percentagely. If I look at our cohort of kids at school, you're probably only finding about 10% sleep enough. So, 60% of our kids report to sleeping 6 hours or less. So we know from everything in the world that's ever been written about sleep is that it's the most important factor in adolescent growth and development, and then just not getting enough rest. And then so that's probably the biggest struggle is sleep, and then therefore all the carry on of motivation and things that follow, because if you can't start the platter well, then nothing follows successfully. And that even comes to then eating, screen time. Once you've upset the 8-hour sleep mix, then it all is unraveled.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is getting the basics in order is obviously key. And we all know that it affects our state of mind. Even getting a few hours less sleep can really alter our decision making, and again the flow and effects of that. But I'm loving what you've said about about the need for internal awareness in order to find motivation. This is a theme that we're working with in the yoga and psychology community at the moment. The difference between the extrinsic motivation and the intrinsic. And, you know, when I'm seeing the teenagers these days, what I'm seeing, and I don't work with the same sample size as you do, so I'm really interested in your thoughts, but I'm noticing that they don't have the same relationship with authority that I had. So extrinsic motivation was what got me good grades. I'll be honest. And then when it reached a point of, well, I'm no longer, I don't need to do it for you anymore, I'm now an adult, where does that come from? And thank goodness, you know, I had resources that led me to looking within myself, connecting to my emotions and using those as a guidance, and then flowing on more recently to needs, which is a central theme, as you know, in this space.
Yes.
But but that, how do we facilitate that for children is really a huge question in my mind. How do we even get a child connected with themselves?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
There's one story I want to tell you which really prefaces where I think it has gone wrong and where we need to rectify. So we were having a parent-teacher conference, and one of our year 7 boys reported that every A he got, his dad would give him $1,000. Wow. And I think to myself immediately, as a counsellor, as a wellbeing advocate, oh, what are we doing when we monetize academic success, right? Mm-hmm. And my whole life as a kid, it was do your best, right? Do your best until you can do better. And when you can do better, do better. You know, it wasn't if you get an A, you get $1,000. And I think the fact that we've taken motivation, we've monetized it, and we measure it, and now we can actually harness it in terms of apps and gaming to always be level up. What can I get from this? Like the common sentence my kids say to me at school is, well, I don't need that. I don't need that subject, or I don't need that job. And it's always, well, if this thing gets me this, it's never, you don't actually know what you will or won't need in year 11 and year 12. You know, who is to tell you you don't need to do general maths over maths extension? You know what I mean? It's about what can this get me? And I think that's the change in our brain function then that's led to getting rid of everything that grew us holistically. You know, how many things did we have going on when we were young that we probably have not tapped into? But it's not that we didn't need it. It's that we have all of these knowledges that we can get new knowledges, you know. Not everything has an end game. And I think that's the problem at the moment with our young people, is that it's the reward center has been overstimulated, and we just don't do things for nothing anymore. And that is probably where then we only do what is required, and they never know what is required. So it's a real slippery slope.
So the reward center, are you talking about the dopamine hit that we all get when we're on a screen?
Yeah.
I notice it for myself. You know, I reach for Facebook and scrolling.
Absolutely.
As a bit of just a little lift. I mean, it doesn't actually really lift. It just puts me in a different headspace, and it's an escape, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. You know, I call it the dopamine debacle, because where we used to have go out and play a team sport, that's your dopamine hit. Make sure, you know, spend time with the family playing games and laughing, that's your dopamine hit. The debacle is we don't do those things anymore. We just pick up our phone, or we pick up our gaming control, and it's false dopamine in a way, because it's not growing us. You know what I mean? So what is it doing for us? If it doesn't grow us emotionally, if it doesn't grow us physically, what is it doing?
Okay, so let's get practical, because I fully agree. Self-awareness is key to self-regulation, and self-regulation is key to being in contact with my values and being able to act on my values. And being in contact with my values is key to motivation. You know, if I know who I am fundamentally, then I can choose my future based on self-knowledge, self-understanding. And wow, you know, there's so much trust being a parent these days. So much trust is required because it's not the same world. It's just not. And a huge part of my learning has been, okay, well, I can't impose my standards, the way that I was raised, on the way that I'm raising my children. That was the quickest way to self-destruction and, you know, and damaging my kids with punishment and coercion.
Relationship. Yeah.
Yes, it really caused a major rift in my relationships when I projected my conditioned upbringing on my kids.
That's right.
So how, you know, and I consider myself to be at least committed to building my emotional literacy, my emotional intelligence, and I still really struggle with moderating my kids' screen time.
Yeah.
Having said that, as I'm speaking, thankfully I'm speaking to a counsellor who's holding space for me to work this out. But I have found my daughter, who's the eldest of my two, has actually come through and come back to being much more relationship centered.
Yes.
And so it's obviously not the short-term game, right? It's much bigger.
Yeah.
What have you seen over your career, particularly, you know, the long-term trends around screens?
Oh, well, I think 23 years old right now was the beginning of the screen time situation. So 23, and as you say, they're coming through. I'm actually noticing kids that are about 11 or 12 even are moving back to relationships. So we've got a decade sort of kids that struggle with motivation, sleep. We've also got kids that struggle with relationships because they have not learnt how to be in relationships with other people in real life. So you've got a massive amount of bullying scenarios that are actually not bullying. It's just that they don't know how to be together. They don't know how to compromise. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to feel. So you've got a decade between sort of 11 and 23, from what I've seen, that I've missed a lot of those essential life skills. And you're right, they will be okay. Everyone, you know, we are humans. Humans know how to navigate these things, you know, they will make up for it eventually. It will be okay eventually. But, you know, everything from in terms of careers, even what I've noticed over the last few years is that the kids don't have any idea what they want with their future. And I think it comes down to the fact that they don't know who they are. And when you don't know who you are, and, you know, we all went through a phase, you know, a couple of years out of school, post, you know, institutionalization, where we were like, oh my, what is happening? But we had,
that's right.
And we had peers and we had mentors that we could rely on to be able to navigate that space together with people. You know, these kids don't necessarily have those people in real life. So, you know, they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And they're about to leave school. And so they're goalless, you know, and when you have not short-term, not long-term, no sort of goals, you know, that's a struggle for your identity, because what are you reaching for to feel good? And then that's when we get into this, you know, the relationship, screen, sleep issue, because they've got huge amounts of anxiety because they don't know how to navigate this world. And I think when we're diagnosing anxiety at the rate of knots and medicating people, and that's, you know, there's a space for that, and there's a space for traditional ways of that, but it's also about coming back to themselves. Like these people, I often get really worried when kids are on medication. They've never been to a psychologist. They've never been to a therapist. So how are they actually working out where this is coming from and where this anxiety needs to go? You know, anxiety is there for a reason. It's telling us something. And they're
telling us. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
So anxiety, if because I agree, the majority of adolescents I see would identify with living with some form of anxiety. What is the value? What is anxiety trying to tell us? How would you
I think we're actually, when you think about where anxiety lives, and it's in the amygdala, right? So it's in the prehistoric part of us. There's something that we're not doing in our modern brain that's satisfying what we need in our primitive brain. So I think it really comes down to movement, like movement and exertion, which some kids are not getting any of. Back when we used to run away from like saber-toothed tigers, that is something our body's conditioned to need. I also then think the village, like we've talked about this, the village where we could fight, flight, and be cared for in our anxiety is not there. So we're fighting on our own, and we're fighting our own brain. And that's what I say to kids all the time. Like I do this thing with, this is the amygdala and this is your prefrontal cortex. You're like this with yourself all day. And then you wonder why you can't sleep, and you feel like a panic attack is coming every second, and no input, right, academic or otherwise, can soothe us because we're fighting our own selves. And so it's about, when we talk about COVID and connection and all of those things, I wonder if we've missed the connection is actually internal. It's not external. It's not connecting with other people. It's connecting with us, both brain, body, whole. And you've got to wonder if that's a thing.
Yes, you're talking my language.
I do think, the lack of physical activity in young people, and then also combine it with sleep as some of our essential needs as humans. And then you put in diet. I mean, let's not even get started there, but do you know what I mean? Like we're missing a lot of the things we really do need when it comes to.
I hear you. I mean, that's essentially why I became a naturopath. I've been looking at what is the underlying need in the human being.
Yeah.
And naturopathy is very much about the foundations. My experience, however, in the last 15 years has been that working at the level of behaviour is really just working with the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
So, telling my teenagers to exercise is, I'll be just getting a wall and
blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
I literally.
Water with a mouthful of sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the long game, I think, sits in the base of the iceberg, and if we can influence the more unconscious sense of self, the unconscious sense of identity, that's where I lean. And yes, of course, we can facilitate. I mean, it's a Montessori principle to create the environment.
Yes.
So the house is not too stimulating.
Yes.
Screens are at least at a distance to the bed.
Out of the rooms,
yeah.
Alexa.
Yeah, well, that's ideal. That's really ideal. And some people manage that. I've not. And that's probably worth mentioning too, isn't it? That every family has such personal values that come from generations. And what works even in my sister's household is not going to work in my household.
No.
We've really got to find a way to do it as parents ourselves. It's been huge for me to go, you know what, I'm going to do this my way.
Our way.
Hammering myself. Yes, our way, as our family works. And that's had to really go out on a limb to do that. But, in terms of this iceberg, I'm thinking about the things that have worked with me and my daughter, because we are tight. We're thick as thieves now. And we really, we were not like that even a couple of years ago. And I, just having this opportunity to reflect has been really powerful for me, because it has been the mentorship like you're talking about, and the village, and just providing reminders that she's got family, she's got my mum, she's got my mother-in-law, she's got her, who's around her. And then the other thing that, as you're talking, I'm reminded of words of affirmation. And I'm wondering
Yes.
if we might flip this one and just like hammer out some positivity.
Love that.
Yeah.
Can I also, sorry.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Interrupt you. Can I also say, because parent guilt is a real vibe, you don't need to do it by yourself. You know, like the thing I think is the most important part of parenting is having other people to help you parent. You know, like when I think of my best parenting moments, they're not by myself. They're when I'm with other mums and other people who also love my kids, right? So you're not the only person who's going to influence your child's life. The biggest hack to parenting is to find people that love your kids too and parent together. You know, like some of my friends are so beautiful with my kids and I will not survive the next 15 years without them. You know, like, and I think that's really important. And, you know, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to have the people.
Like that.
Because it's not, you know, you will go through phases in your life where you're like not your child's greatest friend, and you shouldn't ever be. You know, when we look at our relationships with our mothers, you know, there was periods where I think I wrote down, oh, I wish she would just go away. And now I don't survive without that lady, you know, but we don't love our parents as teenagers. And the thing is, we shouldn't be friends with our kids when they're teenagers. They need us as mums. And so I think the more you can bring the friends in to love them when they don't love you, that's the necessary thing. Okay, so words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So I love words. I once had a real estate tell me that my house would never sell because there was too many words in it.
What
I just like
does that mean? Like love and family.
Love and kindness.
What out?
Yeah, eat in the kitchen, you know, like, and I carry your heart, you know, like all that. I'm a lover of words.
Will never sell, Sarah. It's too many words.
It's too many words. Yeah, people won't see themselves here. It's a library. So, so there's 3 words of affirmation that I always either tell other kids or myself or my kids. So the first one is the mantra that we have in our family is be silly, be honest, be kind.
Be silly, be honest, be kind. Beautiful. That is,
because you really can't go wrong with joy, honesty, and just kindness, right? Like you can't go wrong. If that's your life mantra, where do you go wrong there?
So where do you use this? Like what time of day or when?
I have it on my kids' doors, that mantra. And I'll say often, because my 6-year-old son is a lot sometimes, and I'll say, because he's a bit of a show off, I'll say, are you being silly or are you being a bit mischievous? Because there's a difference, you know. Silly, play, you carry it on and you make it, you know, mischievous. That's a different thing. So we're trying to redefine silly, you know, to be enough joy without going over the top.
Okay, so I can be silly, I can be a bit crazy, I can be crazy.
Yeah.
But if I go into what's mischievous, slightly manipulative, like I want to get something, and I'm
attention seeking. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, gorgeous.
So we're working with that. And be kind is the mantra. Like I'll often say things like, are you being kind with your words? Are you being kind to your sister? Are you being, yeah. I just don't think there's enough of that in any way. And I want to like sprinkle it everywhere like confetti. So I just like, even with the kids at school, I'll walk past conversations. I'll go, oh, that doesn't sound too kind. And I'll go,
yes. Oh, beautiful. Such a lovely word, kind. Yeah, kind.
I even have it on shirts and I wear them to work. The kids know I'm the kindness warrior.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So that's one. And then the second one is, you know, Glennon Doyle, obviously.
Yes.
So Glennon Doyle says a thing that I often tell kids at school. So kids at school, one of the biggest issues is they don't want to make anyone unhappy. They don't want to disappoint people. Okay. And it's often parents. I don't want to disappoint my family, right? And it comes down to anything, gender, it comes down to career planning, it comes down to anything. self-harm even. They don't want to disappoint anyone. That's why they hide everything. And I'll say to them, when it comes to disappointment, because this is what Glennon Doyle says, if you have a choice in anything, and it's either to disappoint yourself or to disappoint other people, always disappoint other people, right? Never disappoint yourself. And I love that. The kids respond to that because I think they're searching for the validation to be selfish in a lot of their choices, but it's not selfishness for no reason. It's self-care, right? When they are continually disappointing themselves, that comes at a cost. And so I love that. I love that affirmation that it's okay to disappoint other people, but just don't disappoint yourself all the time, you know? Because don't we have that disease to please, another thing I say often, of always making other people happy at the forsaken of our own needs and loves and wants, right? And so like I think that's affirming, even though it's not positive.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's an affirmation. I'm affirming that you can make decisions based on your truth.
Your truth. No one else live your truth. Yes.
Your longings. Yeah.
So then the last one, and this is, I often will say this, and this is what we talk about all the time, that I am enough.
I am enough.
I am enough. Yeah. That's my mantra for like all things. Like in the car, I've had like a bad parenting moment, I'll go, I am enough. I am enough. Everything is good. Everything's okay. Yeah.
That's the one we really want to land.
Land.
Really get that. Get
Hold.
it. Yeah.
And I was talking to you about I make rocks with my kids at school with mantras.
Yeah.
And I call them hope rocks, you know, because when you need it, that's what it's there. And one of my kids from last year at his graduation speech, in about year 10, I wrote I am enough on a rock, and I said, just put it in your pocket. And when you need it, you just get it out and you hold it, because kids need a hold. They're tactile. So just get out your rock, right? And just hold that rock. And at the graduation, he held it up and he said, I am enough. This is my rock. And I was like, falling. But yes, we need it on a rock. We need to hold it.
There's really something in that, Sarah. You know, we need this to make tangible. Is essential. And to turn a thought and a feeling and a worry, you know, to turn a thought and a feeling into something that I can hold and touch and then use it constructively. I'd really love to work with teenagers more to provide very tangible skills for them. I mean, it's such a whirlwind. I remember just feeling like I was in an ocean for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably not dissimilar to you, a sense of, wow, I need to be able to harness this potency of my feelings and my thoughts. How on earth am I going to do that? Right?
Yeah.
So thank goodness for mentors to guide the way.
Yep.
And more and more I'd love to work with the teenagers, you know, that they're so open and receptive and they're so playful. I mean,
they actually want it. They want it so bad.
Yes, they do. They do want it. Yes, that's right. They're thirsty. So let's definitely we can even use these conversations to create what that is, what it look like, based on this knowledge that, you know, it's too easy to get a quick fix outside, and that the expectations of the parents, you know, us. Are not even relevant. They're not even relevant. It's like whatever you thought about parenting, just throw it away.
Get that book, throw it in the bin.
That's it. And that is to say to the adolescents and the teenagers, you know, these next generation, you have got to work this out. I mean, actually your autonomy, that drive within you to rebel, to say, fuck you, parent, I know what I'm doing. Actually, there's so much value in that. Our evolution. They're actually leading the way.
Right. They're the change makers.
Oh, they are.
Yep.
So if we can pass on the little that we know that's helped us so that they can go and do the same thing for the next generation to come, and then they can just improve upon that. I mean, thank God for the women of the world who are bringing emotional literacy to the public.
Women. But do you know what I also think? Like, you know how we had a period where, you know, the rage was to be a helicopter parent, you know, and they weren't allowed to climb trees, and there were playgrounds that cut down equipment because it was too dangerous, and all these things that happened. And we're moving back because we've seen that is not the way.
No.
Because the thing is, by doing all these things for our kids and not letting them struggle, we're taking away their confidence. We're taking away their ability that they have to naturally figure out the world. And so where you say, you know, you're the change makers, we need to make sure that we're letting them be the change makers. So it's actually us that need to pull back and give it to them. You know, like, I think that's something we've been so scared of. Oh, well, what if they fall? But actually, like, what if they fly? You know, we can't hold them back all the time. And I think we did that because we were so nervous about this world, and there's a lot of reason to be. But, you know, even playing outside and going bike riding on your own, like, we're so afraid because of everything we see, but the world is safer than it's ever been. You know, like, we need to let them be. That's another thing I feel very passionate about.
Well, I know. I feel I want to find avenues for your passion and for your words. I mean, sincerely, Sarah, you read more than anybody I know, and you read juicy, amazingly life-changing, stirring books. If that's all you did, but just, you know, use your language, you are the mantra coach.
Oh, that's the title we're putting on the business card. Mantra coach.
You are the mantra coach. You could listen to somebody and then give them the statement that they need on a rock. I still reckon I'm going to bring my engraver next time.
Yeah, your little engraver. We're just going to practice. Make it really straight.
Yeah.
Or it's I am enough in really wibbly writing, so it really makes a statement. You know, you are enough even with wiggly writing.
We can say it's set in stone. It's got to be
in stone. It's written down. Yeah.
Like the stone on your water feature, like the stone on your vision board, it's set in stone. I'm starting to see this taking shape. I think probably all we need to do is just provide the space for the adolescents. Let them take the lead. And when they say, I've reached a wall, then we go, how about we try this?
Yep.
Oh, how about we try this?
Yep. That's actually so true. And when I do you know, when I first was green in teaching wellbeing, I would rush in and plan lessons, and I'd be like, guys, we're going to do this, we're going to do gratitude journals, and I am a lot of zest. I am a lot. And
I love that about you. Totally love your zest. Yes.
And I'll be too much for a lot of people. But the best thing I ever learned was one of the kids said to me, if this is for our well-being, why are you designing it?
Oh,
wasn't that a life lesson? And so now I take a big piece of paper and I give it around the room at the start of a term, and they write down what they want. Like, I want to learn how to do sleep properly. I want to learn how to do sleep hygiene. I want to learn how to, you know, do meditation, blah, 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 blah. And then I just let them do it. And, you know, one lesson for 40 minutes, I let them nap. And I read them a story. That's all they wanted. I read them Harry Potter chapter 1, book 1, and that's all they wanted. And they are 16. Yeah. So that's powerful, right? So, like, when you're deciding with your kids, get them involved in the conversation. Like, I want us to exercise more. I want us to have screen time less. Tell me how we do that, guys. Like, sit down your 10-year-olds and say, how do we do this? How do we make this house more of a joy to be in? You know, or how do we make our family more well? What do we do? And then you say, help me, help us. And they go, maybe we should go for a walk after dinner. Excellent. Great idea. Write it down. Maybe we should put our phones in, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, get them Voice is important. That's all I want to know, that they're heard, they matter, you know.
I like that. I'm starting to a list of what questions I can bring to my son, especially. How can we be the best we can be? You know?
Best, how can we be the best? How can you make me the best? How can I make you the best? What can we do?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we have covered a good amount of ground. I'm excited to have your influence. Honestly, there's so much more in there. I just, when I talk to you, I just get this image of you being this beautiful scene. Like if I could shine a torch inside you, there'd be this magical like ocean.
Land.
And then over here, there'd be this incredible depth of valley, you know, and then high mountains, and then down like deeper, deepest meadow of flowers. You're a very, very vital, vibrant, colorful person. And I want to see that come out. So I'm feeling an imperative to almost, I think it's be a conduit for people around me who I'm like, far out, you are so stunning. Let's get you out there. So this was actually the first of that. Coming onto YouTube today.
The awakenings.
First of the awakenings.
From the mantra coach, straight from the mantra coach, awakenings.
Awakenings. Yes.
I do love that about you. You really bring out a side that, you know, maybe vulnerability. You really tap into people. You're very good at that.
Thanks, darling. Well, you know, I think it helps that I kind of sit on the edge of is it the edge of the mainstream? It's not really.
Well, you're in the spiritual realm. You're definitely in the spiritual realm. You sort of like guide people. You navigate the waters of all of those things very well.
Thank you.
It's hard to do, and you've really nailed it. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love exploring, you know, where evidence becomes the edge of evidence. You know, I remember from a very young age, I would have been in uni. I had an incredible chemistry mentor, my lecturer, and he gave us it's just a powerful assessment. I can't even remember what it was now, but essentially it was we reached the point through the process of the assessment. I reached the point of all science will not be able to prove everything. Then what? And that's the bit that really interests me. So we know, no. Awesome, love that. And then. So we might just define this YouTube channel. Yeah. The edge of everything.
That feels right. That feels really right. That connects with me.
Oh,
research can only get us so far.
That's it. And it does take us far.
It does.
Then what? Because that's the edge of, you know, our thinking. The cutting edge.
Maybe it should be and what? Because they can sit together.
The edge of
and as a connector.
And what? Say, what's the whole, give me my mantra.
The edge of evidence and what? And what else? You know, because the thing is and that's a really good balancing technique in wellbeing and counselling. So the last 2 years have been really hard and I've connected with my family. Do you know what I mean? So there's an and bridges a gap between what is going well and what's not going well, and knowing that there's a connection.
So what it's just done is acknowledge the evidence.
And
that's the and then the what is what's next.
What's next? Future. Acknowledgement in the future. You are silky, Sarah. Mantra coach right there. Right now. Mantra coach right there. Just earned my title. Yes. I love that. Next conversation is going to be about, I think it's going to have to be over a coffee so we can practice. Get down in hard physical. Work out the end. That's it, map out the end. And thank you so much for joining today. Thanks for having me. I had a great time. Love talking to you. I'll be in touch on my phone with practical details. And thank you on behalf of listeners and parents out there. Thank you, parents. You're doing good.
Yeah.
And you're doing great.
Thanks, darling. Okay. All the
Have a
best.
great day.